coverage to the Power Four schools. Jimmy and I being junior college athletes and junior college All-Americans, we know that there's a lot of great schools in a lot of awesome places. We've traveled all over the country, lived all over the country. And so we want kids to know that if you're a committed student athlete, there's a place for you, and we can find a place where you can continue to go to school, but then also continue your athletic career. And so we're just trying to have conversations with people like yourself, some of the coaches that you've shared with us, some of the other coaches in the NAIA, NJCAA, and NCAA, that we wish we would have heard when we were going through the recruiting process.
Fantastic. Now I'm ready.
All right. Well, let's get it rocking and rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, howdy and aloha. We are here, you are there, and you are now rocking with the best. Welcome back to another live episode of Airey Bros Radio. Tonight, we're stepping back on the mat. We're lacing up the boots to go belly to belly with a true builder of the sport, Jim Giunta, president and chairman and founder of the National Collegiate Wrestling Association, the league that has created college wrestling opportunity for thousands of athletes across North America. But before we get rolling, you all know the drill. Hammer that like button. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Drop us a comment. Every view, review, and share helps us grow and get back to the sports we love. Follow us on Instagram at Airey Bros Radio. Make sure you are also subscribed on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. This episode, as all episodes, is fueled by Black Sheep Endurance for all your ultra marathon and nutrition coaching needs. And let's not forget, we are a value for value show, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're getting any value at anything we're doing over here and you do feel so inclined, please click on that link and buy us a coffee. And remember, we're here to highlight the programs, coaches we wish we had access to growing up. If you are an athlete, parent, or coach looking for real development, real culture, and real opportunity, you're in the right place. All right, let's lace them up and get after it. Tonight's guest founded the NCWA in 1997, is now grown from 18 teams to 116 athletes into 150 plus teams, plus 2,500 plus current athletes and 35,000 plus alumni across the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. Built wrestling infrastructure in Texas, founded the Texas Interscholastic Wrestling Association, and helped push organization, administration, and growth statewide. Pioneer for women's college wrestling, the NCWA established a women's division in 2007 and hosted their first women's collegiate national championships in 2008. Without further ado, it is an honor and a pleasure to have you joining us this evening. We do greatly appreciate your time. Jim Giunta, welcome to the show.
Rich, you did. Thank you for that intro. You sure did you did a lot of homework on that stuff. My gosh, I don't know what else I have to talk about after all that.
We've got plenty to talk about. It is an honor and a pleasure to get you on here tonight, Jim. We do greatly appreciate your time. We're excited to get into it. We've been learning more and more as we cover wrestling at all levels. So it's fun to learn about, opportunities that kids have. Not everyone, even though they might think so, is a Division I athlete.
Right.
And so, sometimes they get their heart broken. But we want them to know that there are places for them to go. Maybe they want to go to a Division I school. Maybe that Division I school doesn't even have wrestling, or so they think it might have wrestling. But we find out that there are a lot of programs out there that are in existence and are thriving and doing well. And that's a large part due to you and your work. So we're excited to get into it with you this evening.
Well, that idea of going to a school that you thought might have Division I wrestling is right up my alley. I wrestled at a little school called Burrell in Western Pennsylvania, Burrell High School, and after that, went to a small college, Penn State. Now, Penn State knew Ken. Okay, it wasn't the main campus. There was about 14 or 15 small campuses around the state that fed Penn State main campus when you were intelligent enough maybe to get there. But I wrestled 2 years there and did for that level, did relatively well. I won the Commonwealth Championships, which was the combination of all those teams. And so I transferred schools because I thought, well, my major I wanted it to be marine biology. It was biology, but there were only 3 schools in the country, and one of them was Texas A&M. I'm thinking, I don't want to go to Woods Hole, Massachusetts. That's too cold. I don't want to go out to Washington. That's too big. Texas sounded cool. Okay, I thought we'd have cowboys and Indians and oil wells and all that stuff. And so I thought I'm going to go to Texas. I get down to Texas, just assuming coming from Western PA that all Division One schools would have wrestling. I show up in Texas. I'm 2 weeks early for school. I think I'm going to go meet the wrestling coach. Can't find him. Go up to the athletic department. I get to meet the athletic director. And I said, hey, I'm from Pennsylvania. I just moved here, going to go to school. I wanted to see if I could try it for the wrestling team. Could you introduce me to the coach so I could try it for wrestling? And he goes, wrestling? Boy, we ain't got no wrestling here. He said, we got a rodeo club. You could wrestle some steers. And it just blew me away that Texas was so different from Pennsylvania and that nobody had wrestling. And that's kind of that's how we started a club at Texas A&M back in the 70s. So the that's it's expanded from there.
Yeah, and
So
that
Jim,
expansion in Texas has been pretty amazing to watch over the past, couple decades, since I've been a part of wrestling, and even now where, guys like Bo Nickel and Brandon Slay and some of the other guys that have come
Oh
out
yeah.
in Texas and done some pretty amazing things on the national and Olympic stage.
Yeah, now we even have I think Jason Nolf's down here from
Yep.
Katanning, which was right next to Burl. Now, not in the same age era, but that's same neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Jim, you mentioned starting a club at Texas A&M, and then in 1997, I believe you started the NCWA. What kind of made you want to start that, and how'd you get that going?
Sure. Really prior to that, which what led to this is we started Uh, I came to Texas and I started to coach wrestling in high school, and they didn't really have much of anything. There were a few schools, and so I started the TIWA, the Texas Interscholastic Wrestling Association, so that we would have some type of cohesive leadership and pull together, eventually build conferences around the state. And once we were able to take the wrestling from high schools, which at the time, again, they were governed by guys like me. Just we couldn't get the state to pick it up. It was just governed on the side with clubs. But ultimately, we got the UIL, which down here is like the athletic governing body, the University Interscholastic League in Texas. We eventually, over the years, got them to pick up wrestling, and it has boomed here ever since. We had grown it to about as big as we were going to make it without getting it to go be funded by the state. But at that point, we said, okay, now we've got wrestlers coming out of high school. They're doing a great job, but we have zero wrestling in Texas at college. Where are these guys going to go, and how do we make a difference there? So that's when founded the NCWA back in '98, and and grew it from there. It started off with just 13 teams, and most of which were either Texas or Pennsylvania. The people I knew, the connections you make, and that's how the NCWA started.
So, Jim, you educated me when we were talking on the phone. You said it's not club wrestling. These are wrestling programs. These are wrestling teams. I want you to refer to it as that. Can you kind of get in depth with that? Because I know people see the NCWA and they say, "Oh, that's just club wrestling."
Yeah, in fact, I think some people think NCWA is the National Club Wrestling Association instead of National Collegiate. But yeah, we started off honestly with almost every team. The first year was a club. Uh, it wasn't until the athletic director from the apprentice school at Newport News, Virginia, came down and watched that very first national championship and looked at it and said, "Hey, this is something we would like to join and like to be a part of." And the apprentice school's been around since the second year of the NCWA, and they're a full-blown, all scholarship, all paid coaches, athletic department program. So we ended up finding out down the road that schools like that were balking at people calling them clubs. I mean, they say, "Hey, we're not a club, we're an athletic department program." And we had other schools that said, "Well, you can't call them a team because they're not an NCAA team." So we eventually found out that the best thing to say was just say, hey, it's an NCWA program, just like it would be an NAIA program or an NCAA program. This is just another national governing body. We're the youngest of the governing bodies, but we are only 27 years old relative to the NCAA, but we are a governing body recognized by well over, 180 universities right now, and that's how people become governing bodies, is the university recognizes them as such. Um, and so we're really bigger than any of the single divisions in wrestling right now. What really makes us unique is unlike the NCAA, the NAIA, the NJCAA, they govern football, basketball, baseball. Our focus is wrestling. We're not being distracted by those other sports. Okay, we're focused on building wrestling and helping athletes achieve success at whatever level they can compete at. And so some of those indeed are clubs, but more and more we have full-blown programs that give scholarships that have pretty nicely paid stipends to coaches. So it has evolved over that 27 years from strictly a club program back in the 90s to today a full-blown governing body.
Do you have any idea of percentage wise of the teams that in the NCWA that are run like programs and the ones that are run like clubs?
Kinda. I mean, if you look on our website, which by the way is ncwa.net, you'll see that there's Division One programs and Division Two programs. Division Two we would consider emerging programs. Some of them have stayed emerging forever. But we have the D1s are really solid programs that can go out there and compete at any level. And so probably 30% of our programs would be considered that level. If an NCAA D2 program wanted to have a duel with an NCWA program, I'd tell them stay away from the D2s, our D2s, but compete against the D1s. You're going to get a solid competition, teams that are going to bring full squads and not be forfeiting matches, etc.
So, Jim, I graduated from Monmouth University back in 1998,
Oh yeah,
as I
okay.
mentioned, as a runner. But over the past couple of years, they have developed the wrestling team,
They have.
and it's really cool. Jimmy and I would always talk about what it would be like if Monmouth had a wrestling team because the culture of wrestling in New Jersey is very strong, and I think in that area as well too, where we're from is pretty dominant. So it's been great to see that program emerge and put some guys on the mat and give guys some opportunities to compete at the.
Absolutely. Did Monmouth ever have a D1 or D2 program prior to this?
I
Uh,
believe when it was Monmouth College, I believe. But
Okay.
it was way before our time.
Okay. Well, we find a lot of alumni at different schools that had programs, and today those we call those orphan alumni because schools drop their program and they tear down they don't have the old trophies up anymore. These guys can't go back to the Letterman's Club. I mean, it changes that whole outlook of a school when they drop the program. And so we seek out, orphan alumni and help them rebuild their programs at their alma mater uh, and get back in the game again. And I think a lot of those guys really, really like that. They like to come to the Nationals to see their team once again compete at that level, and it's an enjoyable thing all the way around.
Jim, let's say a young man or young woman goes to an institution. They wrestled in high school. They did the
Sure.
freestyle circuit, all that stuff. But whether it's like tradition in the family, legacy, or whatever, they go to a school that doesn't have a wrestling program. Um, they want to get something started. Is that something that they can come and reach out to you and you can help them with it, or
Oh,
is it like the
absolutely.
clubs get started and then they come to you?
100%. I mean, that's really why we exist. We have programs at all levels. I mean, all the way from the D1 giants that you'd say, Florida, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, those kinds of schools, UCLA, and all the way down Division two, or I'm sorry, 2-year schools, Springfield Tech. I think right now we have a transition team. Lackawanna's in Pennsylvania is transitioning from NJCAA to Division two, these transition teams. We have trade schools like the Apprentice School or Williamson Trade, So I would say we're the most inclusive of the programs out there. And so, yes, at almost any institution that's accredited, we can help you get a program started. The biggest mistake that's made, before I tell you how to start one, is for a coach to go in there and say, "Hey, I want to start a wrestling program at your school." I mean, that's almost a guaranteed door slam, shut the door, get out of my face. Um, don't walk into academia and tell them why wrestling is so great and that they need to have it. Okay, because that falls on deaf ears. The other way to mess with this is you find one or two or three students at that university that either wrestled or want to wrestle, and you teach them how to build a club. And that's where it starts. Some of these clubs then move to levels where they're hiring coaches at 50 and 60,000 bucks a year, but that's not where it starts. It starts with a student going in and just going by the rules it takes to start a club. Just get your camel's nose under the tent, okay? And we start a program that way. So they normally will call us. We'll coach them through that process of getting a club started. After they get the club started, at that point, they invite in a coach. If the coach had come in first, the school would have animosity toward that coach because he's sticking his nose in where it shouldn't be. But if you get the student, which to the school is the client, okay? If you get that student to start a club, and then he goes out into the community and asks for a volunteer coach to come in. Now the school sees that individual as a benevolent individual from the community coming in to help. And they're treated totally different than if they tried to start the program. So we always try to recommend stay away from the athletic department. They already have more than they can say grace over. If you go to athletic department, they're going to tell you all the reasons they can't do it. And honestly, I'm not beating the athletic departments up. They have a lot of other things happening. They got to figure out where would the budget come from, what space on campus are we going to get this in, et cetera, et cetera. So they're thinking negative stuff. Stay away from the athletic department. Go to students and have them go to the sport club department first. And it doesn't have to be that. Emma, we started MIT in the chemistry department. I don't care what department it's in. Okay. As long as they're allowed to use the school's name, colors, and logo, and they're funded in some capacity by the university, we're home free. That's what we're after. I don't know if that
Jim,
made sense or not.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Speaking of that avenue of having the students start the club, have you seen in your years a student who kind of took the approach like a coach, and next thing you knew, had a squad of 30 or 40 kids just in a year or two, just based on a student running it?
Yes, but typically what happens, and that's why, I don't know, 10 years ago, we changed our rules to require them to have a non-student coach. We got to the point where we were at about 70 schools, and we began to lose as many schools as we were bringing in each year. And that was because there was no consistency when a leader who started the program graduated and left. The program typically fell apart or became, it got in disarray, regardless of if they said they had somebody who wanted to do it. So having a coach is critical to making this work. And all honesty, when we look at this thing, a big reason for having the NCWA, not only for the athletes to have the experience and be able to grow in the sport and grow spiritually and physically, but to be in a situation where we could develop coaches. If we were to lose our college wrestling programs, we'll lose most of our coaches. Almost every coach that's out there comes through a college program somewhere. And because we've been able to put thousands of students through the NCWA, we have hundreds and hundreds of coaches out there coaching at various levels. Youth coaches, high school coaches, junior high coaches, and college coaches all over the country as a result of guys that went through the NCWA programs.
Jim, you talked about before schools that are in those transition areas, they come to the
Yeah.
NCWA to when they're in that transition area. How long has that been a thing, and have you seen a lot of success with colleges in the transition
Sure.
areas?
Yeah, we have. We've had a lot of success, and it's been around a long time. I mean, we probably have done that probably since the early, I mean, 2005, 2008, somewhere in there, where we began to try to usher in schools that were sort of stuck in that limbo period when they're moving to another division and they're not allowed to have a postseason. Coaches in that situation have a harder time to recruit athletes, and even when they can recruit them, they aren't all prepared to go to the next level because they just haven't had the competition. So NCWA allows them to compete with NCAA competition all year long. The only difference is after the regular season, we're going to have our own national championship, just like D2, D3, NAI all have their own, but we'll compete head to head with NCAA programs at all levels. So um, I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think probably a misconception is that people would assume that these transition teams that are, going from NAI to NCAA or from Division two, Division three, that they come into the NCWA and they just dominate the field, but that's not really the case, is it?
It's not. In most cases, I mean, I can think of a number of schools that have come in and not even placed in the top 10, whether it was Minot or SUNY Edwardsville. Some of those came in and were even D1 uh, um, transition teams and kind of got their eyes open. We had some great transition teams that were really, really tough. I mean, Cal Baptist, who's in the process right now of being threatened to lose their program. Cal Baptist came through the NCWA two different times. They came through from NAI to D2, stayed in D2 a bit, and then came back to the NCWA when they transitioned from D2 to D1. And when they did that, they were tough. They won, I believe they won the national championship twice. Um, and we had the same thing with Notre Dame College in Ohio, not Notre Dame University, although they've also been a part of the NCWA, but not as a transition team. So we've had quite a few. Bellarmine just came through. Again, they were tough, and they were the kind of program that came in and won it. But the truth is, it really elevates our whole program, our teams, our wrestlers, our coaches, when they step up to have to go against teams, like Menlo right now, which is a tough program. So yeah, we love that. We think it's important. I used to, not as much anymore, but I really used to have to fight to keep that in place because our coaches would also have the other side of it. And, as a former coach, it's important for them to, I understand where they're at. They want their athletes to succeed. And so sometimes I had pushback that said, well, if this team wasn't in here, my guy would have All-American, or if this guy wasn't in here, my guy would have done better. And I get that, but I think overall, from the 10,000-foot view, it's better for the entire wrestling community for us to do transition teams from their perspective and from our perspective.
Yeah, the rising tide rises all ships, doesn't it?
Amen. Amen. That's like that running stuff with your brother, right? You know.
So, Jim, you were also the NCWA was groundbreaking in terms of being the first association to add women's wrestling.
Yeah. Um, that again started at high school. We started the women's wrestling in Texas. Um, and I think we were the number two. Hawaii had women's wrestling before we did, but after Hawaii, it was Texas. And I got that's a unique story, maybe. I don't know. I guess I can mention that's, I mean, I'm out of the period where I'm not allowed to talk about it anymore. Um, so I think I can do this. But back then, um, we we were in litigation over women's wrestling and men's wrestling. So, when I was even in school, there's always been one or two or three women that can wrestle and do a good job. But I've always believed until they had a league of their own, until it was their own thing, we were never going to get the multiples to grow. And as a result, most women would never experience wrestling. Okay, so to me, it's the wrestling experience that makes the entire difference. Now, today, we've got moms who wrestled and they think differently than the moms who, sent their kids out to wrestle and thought, oh, what are they doing? They're grabbing each other. They got to wear that little singlet thing. And I mean, they think different. They've done it, they feel it. So to me, it was important to build a league. But the ACLU, there was one or two women in Texas that felt like they just wanted to compete against the guys. And I was running the state of Texas at the time before UIL. And I said, no, we're not doing that. I said, if you put a woman out onto the mat or a girl, you put a girl out onto the mat, that's putting out an ineligible athlete and they lose. You can't just put them out. So they were trying to play the game. We'll put four girls out there and take forfeits, right? And so we got in a lawsuit, and ultimately at the end of the day, they um, at that back then the period is over now, so I can talk about it. But back then it basically said that we had settled for an undisclosed amount of money, and that settlement kind of meant people thought ACLU thought we lost. But the reality was we didn't. We had gone forward, and as a result of that, we began the women's program at the college level. Um, to me, we now you guys probably know the difference between the way our girls are primarily wrestling and what the women's league is like today in the NCAA. Yes, so there is a difference.
Are you
And
guys doing Scholastic in the NCWA, or is
correct.
it
All of our women are wrestling folk style or collegiate style, not freestyle. Now, I shouldn't say that because we still do wrestle freestyle. We do both. I think both contribute to an athlete's well-being. I don't have any aversion to freestyle. But man, I want us to win the Olympics, and the so. But I found that when we forced women to move from the style they had learned in high school, and then if they were going to go to college, they had to totally shift. We were losing a lot of numbers of women. And so for them to come in and compete in a style they know and understand and feel good about, and then transitioning them over time into freestyle, that works. So we do have a women's freestyle nationals as well as a women's folk style nationals. So we compete in both, and we encourage our women to compete in both all season long. They can compete in freestyle or folk style.
Jim? You
So
mentioned,
go ahead,
sorry,
Jim.
Rich.
Go ahead.
You mentioned the freestyle nationals for women. When we spoke on the phone, you had mentioned that you guys have a grappling league as well that you got going on, right?
Oh, that's a whole nother thing. You're gonna go that direction. Yeah. Yeah, we just launched this is the third time I've tried it though. Um the start but it's already kicking off pretty good. The NCGA, National Collegiate Grappling Association, which is under that moniker online. It's the ncga.org. Um that program is designed to number one, help fund both programs, grappling and wrestling. I'm hoping that it puts us in a position where we can have some cross pollination and grow both programs. And the NCGA really is the only game in town now. It's not like wrestling where we have all the different divisions. The NCGA is going to kind of be the NCAA of grappling. And so we use some wrestling rules. I mean, if they try to pull guard, they're giving up 2 points. Okay, they can't just pull guard and lay there. Nah, we ain't doing that. We're going to have the push out rule, that keeps them in the middle, and so they lose points if they're going out of bounds. But it basically then is submission rather than a pin.
Rich, I know you got a question, but I just got to give Jim some dabs on that because Rich and I always had a conversation that if you can't take someone down, you're not a black belt.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I love the loss of 2 points for pulling guard. That was one frustrating thing that Jimmy and I encountered as wrestlers going into the jujitsu practice of people that, or just in general at jujitsu practices, very rarely do they start standing on their feet. It's always either from like a seated position or from a knee, in your knees position. And very rarely do they, at least in my experiences back
Right.
in the early 2000s, where we were allowed to do takedowns or start from our feet in a neutral position.
Yeah, it is. It's a different culture. I was on the phone today with one of the coaches, the one at UC Riverside, and you know they they have 120 athletes or 120 grapplers on their team. 80 to 85 come to practice every day, but only 11 of them want to compete. And I went, what? I don't understand that. They go, well, they just sort of roll around, they have a good time. I'm going, I don't, that's foreign to me. And so I'm saying, one of the things wrestling I hope will bring to the NCGA college grappling is a more aggressive style. Okay, the more aggressive takedown, obviously, but just the overall competitive nature that wrestling has. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's people that go out for wrestling and say, I just want to practice, I never want to wrestle. What? You're going to get your head beaten all week by the guy above you, and then you don't want to compete? It doesn't make any sense. But apparently, in the grappling world, that's pretty typical. So that's an area we're having to change and work on. And they don't know how to run tournaments. They don't know how to run duels. They don't know any of that stuff. So it's a new field, and I'm learning every day. I've never grappled. I never did any of that stuff. So I'm more an administrator, but I've surrounded myself with some guys that really know the rules, that have competed internationally and really know what they're doing. So I give them all of that stuff.
And Jim, the NCWA, they follows along the traditional kind of wrestling season championship in March. With the NCGA, when is that season or those competitions going to take place?
Well, this year the NCGA's nationals will be in April, so it'll be
Okay.
after our regular wrestling season. Um, and we probably won't have any competition in the fall. It'll all be a spring sport. So there is a little bit of overlap for wrestling, but I'm hopeful that we'll have a lot of our grapplers go out for wrestling in the fall, and move over to wrestling that way. So, um, yeah.
Have you seen some cross pollination from the other side of it, where wrestlers are then carrying over after March, going into April to do some?
Well, we haven't seen it yet because we
Yeah.
haven't done it.
Okay.
But I think we will. You hear coaches have told me they've walked into a wrestling room and seeing people pull guard. They're learning how to do some of this stuff. They've walked into there's guys that say, after wrestling, I want to get into, MMA, right? And I don't know if you know a guy, Tony Ferguson was an NCWA wrestler for Grand Valley. He was a national champ for us and did very well in the mixed martial arts area. And you know that not most, a lot of those guys, I don't know what the number is that have done well in UFC have been wrestlers and not grapplers because the wrestlers are so much more aggressive. So.
We mentioned Tony Ferguson, but another name that comes to mind is Tom Lawler.
Oh yeah,
He was a
I saw Tom a little while back. I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, and
okay.
yeah, for sure, Tom's done a great job and continues to be out there and work with people.
Yeah. Jim, when we jumped on in the beginning, you said when you went to Texas A&M, you were a marine biology major.
Yeah.
Did you
Did I?
stick with marine biology? Did you get into business? I feel like a lot of what you're doing with the business and
Yeah.
administration side of things is, or is this all something that you've kind
Yeah.
of has come to you organically?
No, I got into the business world and built the NCWA a little bit on the model of building franchise businesses. And so, yeah, when I got out of school, though, I didn't finish in marine biology. I ended up finding out I got really, really sick on big boat tours.
Uh,
Uh, it's, and so I ended up moving over to education, got a master's degree in education, and then went into teaching and coaching. But yeah, I've lost your. What did you ask me just a second ago?
I was just curious if you, when you got out of marine biology, if you went into business, but it sounds like
Yeah.
you,
Okay. So yeah, I more fell into business. It was I needed some part-time income, and I had a buddy who was in a business that was in finance, and I said, "Man, I failed math in high school. I don't think I can do this." And he said, "Yeah, you got calculators. They'll do all that work for you." So I learned how to become a financial planner, and then I built one office, and then a number of others that have a number of agents or securities licensed individuals that work through those. But by learning to build these individual offices, I sort of learned how to do that same thing in wrestling, and and make head coaches or give individuals an opportunity to be a head coach, just like in business.
Jim, we've been educated on the NCWA tournament. We've had Nick Costco on. He wrestled for the Rutgers Club, and
Oh yeah,
he was just pumping up that tournament and opened our eyes to the 65 man bracket. Can you talk a little bit about the national tournament and how awesome it is?
it is the national tournament. I mean, it's not D1, but I'll tell you what, we have probably more fans, not than D1, but than the other divisions. We have certainly a lot more athletes. We are running side by side the men's division and the women's division. They compete on the big stage at the end. I mean, we both have, we right now we're doing, a women's match, then a men's match, then a women's match, then a men's match, and on the big stage. And those athletes get to come out under the smoke and the fireworks, and the it's we try to make it a great show for them. We know they work hard all year, and we want to make it special. So we're doing it in a big arena. The arena dwarfs us, to be honest. I mean, it's a 14,000 seat arena, but we do petition some of it off to make it not feel not so big. But we start off with 10 mats, so we're bigger than the NCAA on the number of mats running, but we are running men and women. It's getting to the point where this year it looks like we'll have around 400, maybe 450 women, and we'll probably qualify 575 men. So we'll be at almost 1,000, if not 1,000 athletes at the national championship. So we're getting to the point where we've got to go, okay, do we split this up? Do we run the first ever nationals that goes for 4 days? What a marathon. Right, Rich? It would be a marathon.
yeah, it would be.
Uh, and so I all I can tell you is you've really got to see it. I mean, we've had a number of people come that knew nothing about it, and when they came back, it was like, wow. I mean, I don't know what I can do online here. But we do a regular program, that does the whole thing. This is all this would give you. I don't know if you can see any of this kind of stuff online, but that gives you sort of, you know, that's one weight class, and the people that have qualified for that. I mean, we have we still do. I still like to do all the printed stuff, so we're still doing brackets, paper brackets that look like this, although they go
Nice.
they go online as well.
Mhm.
But I mean, I like them to come home with a bracket and a program at the Nationals. Um, so it's great. I think both of you need to come out. You need to broadcast live from the national championships. I'll get you a hotel. Okay, we'll take care of you if you want to come out and watch.
I like
And
it.
by the way, this year's the first year our nationals will be the last show in town. Typically, when we first started the NCWA, in my mind, because I'm from way back when, the Wade Chalice area where I thought, if we built this where we set it up so that it was before the D1s, I'm thinking in my head, never happened, but that what we could do is our national champions might be able to qualify for D1s, right? And kind of like they used to back in the old days. That never occurred, but we always set our nationals between D1 conferences and nationals. So that was always when we did it. This year will be the first time we've done our nationals the week after D1s, which gives us some real advantages. I mean, it gives us better flights and hotels because we're not during spring break. It gives us the cream of the crop of the officials because there's nowhere else for them to officiate. So we've got some good things that go on. And so yeah, this will you'll be totally free even if you were going to go to D1s. You've got that next weekend available.
And that's in Louisiana, right?
It is. It's Shreveport Bossier City. It's at the Brookshire Arena, and yeah, it's a great place. I mean, we have the Hilton Hotel's our host, but there's a bunch of casinos there, and some of them are staying at the various casinos, and they've got some big hotels and a lot of fun actually. That I'd never really hung out in Shreveport Bossier City. But as a parent or somebody coming in, they do have a lot of other things to do, not to mention the great food they have in Louisiana.
Yeah. Jim would get some gumbo. It would be like going to Lucille's around the corner from us in Denver.
Yeah, there you
Some
go.
some
Some
beignets.
beignets. Jim, are there any teams from Louisiana in the NCWA?
Well, yeah, there's a few. LSU is a member, and McNeese State. I think you're going to get. I think Louisiana Tech and Xavier. I believe Xavier University. So I think there's four. Yeah.
All right. Sorry for putting you on the spot there. Um, how many conferences do you have in the NCWA?
Well, there's nine, but there's really only eight active. We have nine conferences. We launched a couple years ago where we were trying to build a conference in Puerto Rico. We actually ran our national championship 3 years ago in Puerto Rico, which was a real feat. Um, trying to ship. They don't have collegiate mats over there, and what they do have, they have a couple mats, but they're all freestyle and they're just kind of, that cloth or the
Canvas.
whatever that is that goes
Yeah.
over some, they don't really have mats. So we got with Easy Flex mats and found a way to ship over 10 mats over to Puerto Rico. So that's getting them on a ship down in Houston and literally shipping them over to Puerto Rico and then trying to get them picked up over there. And then we donated four mats to Puerto Rico to try to get kickstart that program. And they've had some athletes. One year they had a heavyweight that was really good, went into the finals. But this year I'm not seeing much activity down there. But we have eight conferences: northeast, the mid Atlantic, southeast, southwest, Great Lakes Conference, the West Coast Conference and the Northwest. So we have conferences all over the country and they have to compete at the conference and in order to make it to nationals.
Jim, are all 50 states represented in the NCWA?
Not yet, but that
Not
would
yet.
be that's a nice goal for sure. I wish we had 50. We don't have Hawaii or Alaska. A lot of this has to do with money, by the way.
Sure.
Just trying to get teams to be able to make those kind of moves. And most of these programs start off in that club level, and you may get a couple $1,000 from the school to run the program in the beginning, no coaches stipend. And before they ever have a chance to mature and really begin fundraise or find some alumni to help, they kind of collapse if they have to do too much traveling. So, the Dakotas, we don't have anything up there. Uh, I'm trying to think. I'm sure there's other states. We do have, I think we have something in all, well, we don't have anything in New Mexico. I was trying to think down south. Um, I would say we probably are in 44 or 45 of the 50 states.
Okay.
Jim, we're seeing teams that have Division One NAIA teams going into the NCWA with like a second roster. Do you see that becoming more of a thing? Like teams like Life, I know, but when we talk to the coach from Tarleton
Yeah.
State, they're going to keep their NCWA team.
Um, in that respect, yes. Unfortunately, though, in some of these respects, it's going to be deal with the new 30 cap. Some of those will go D2, some of them will go D3, but a lot of them will end up in the NCWA. I say that in a negative way simply because, you know, when we founded the NCWA, my objective was to extinguish it. I didn't ever expect it to be what it is today. I thought, like I did in Texas, if I could start the program in Texas, the superintendents of schools thought wrestling was run by UIL. They they the students rode the buses, they hired coaches, they built wrestling rooms, they did all the stuff, and it was being run by me instead of the state. But so when we went to the state and moved it all over, I thought this is a great model. What we'll do is we'll build this thing up so big that the NCAA can't ignore it, and they're going to have to take the wrestling teams. Well, again, a pipe dream. That's not what happened. Um, but it's grown into its own thing. Now we have a board of directors. I'm reading books right now. I'm trying to think, uh, like Next is all about succession, right? How do I turn this over to somebody else and make sure it stays healthy? That kind of stuff. And but it'll keep growing. I don't see any real anything stopping it at this point. It's getting bigger and bigger. And instead of the RTC, which the RTC, at least in my mind, was built originally as a post graduation so that we could prepare our people for the Olympics. So they'd come out of college, they'd go to the RTC, they'd train with some of the best, and they'd become our Olympians. This is kind of like a preschool uh, RTC, where coaches can bring athletes in that they go, in fact, this started because of Russ Hellickson. I don't know if you remember Russ,
Yep.
but Russ Hellickson, when he was at Ohio State, called me and said, "Hey, we want to start an NCWA program." And I said, "Well, our rules say you can't have an NCWA program on the campus of an NCAA program." And I did that originally because I didn't want there to be any opportunity for us to erode an NCAA program. So we had a rule to that. And he said, "Well, that's a dumb rule." He said, "You guys, I've got a lot of guys who are coming to this school, but I can't fit them on my roster. They want to be Buckeyes. They've dreamt all their life to be a Buckeye, and they come to my campus, and I go, I've already got 4 141s. I can't use you." Right. And so he says, then I let them go and they go up to Kent State and I see them 3 years later kicking my butt. He said, but I could have had them on at Ohio State if we had an NCWA program. So he was really the impetus for us changing that rule and saying, okay, well, let's go ahead and allow that to occur. It didn't occur recently until recently. It has just blossomed lately, and we've got the Penn States, the Michigans, the Iowa States, the Rutgers. I mean, we've got a number of programs that are now looked at in some way. Some of the coaches look at them as feeders, other ones don't. I mean, I was in the pool down at the NWCA and met Roger Chandler from Michigan State, and he started asking about, how's this work? And that first year, they had like 30 guys on the Michigan State NCWA program. So more and more of the D1 coaches, I think, are starting to see what we're doing and giving them an opportunity to not turn students away, but give the student an opportunity to come in and maybe prove themselves. Say, look, go out. win the NCWAs, and we'll bring you up, right? So it's not a negative. It's hopefully it's a big positive for keeping students coming to school.
Yeah, it's almost like a new way to run a walk-on program.
It is a new feeder program,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, great terminology, walk-on program. That's good. That's better than my pre-RTC thing.
Jim, is there anything about the NCWA that we haven't covered that you want our audience to know?
Golly, let me think. I mean, we have covered quite a bit, and I think that it's just a matter of people knowing we're here. We've had some great coaches come through and have contributed over the years, whether, Ben Peterson has been an NCWA coach. Dave and Jim Hazewinkles. I don't know if you know who the Hazewinkles are. They both coach for us. Pat Milkovich was a coach in Florida for a number of years. Andre Metzger's been a coach in the NCWA. So we've had a lot of really good coaches come through that have contributed to the program, and then we've had a lot of great guys go out and become coaches at other schools. So I just encourage everybody to really look into what we are and how we work, and they can email me if they want at Jim at ncwa.net, and I'm more than happy to bring folks up to speed or to let them know if this would be appropriate for their school or their athlete. Individual parents many times that think, hey, my kid's going to get a D1 scholarship, and I pray that they all can. But the reality of life is, like me, not everybody's going to be a D1 athlete, and we still want them to have a great college experience, not go to school, and you have a group that you click with, and if you can be part of a team rather than just a kind of a red shirt that's out there by themselves, be part of that team. It changes your whole college experience that you have. So I guess
Yeah.
that's what I'd tell you.
Jim, I got one last one for you here.
Sure.
You've got a magic wand and an unlimited budget. What does the NCWA look like in 10 years?
Well, if I've got a magic wand and an unlimited budget, my gosh, I mean, yeah, we'd blow everybody away. The truth is, I mean, we would really be in a situation where we'd be offering scholarships, would be hiring the best coaches. I mean, if we had even an alumni base that was saying, you know what, we're gonna contribute to this, instead of going, my program's gone. I don't know what we're gonna do. We're out of it. Instead, say, hey, let's come in here and let's make this program good enough that it can compete and beat and all the not all but the NCAA programs that are out there. You can quit or you can decide to fight. And I'm hoping we have more and more people, alumni, that go, we're not going to let our program go away. Either like a Cal Baptist, either we're going to revive Cal Baptist and make it everything it can be, or we'll recharacterize it like we did with Liberty University, recharacterize it to an NCWA program, and continue to build it, continue to be in a situation where we have schools' big thing is student engagement. They want these students to come to their school, they want them to have a great college experience, and they want to keep them until they graduate. Okay, graduation numbers are important. So by keeping an NCWA program on campus, even if they were to lose their NCAA program, but we can't lose our alumni. Those alumni have still got to say, we're going to contribute. We're still going to build this program. I don't care. But it's my generation, to be honest, that has that mindset that, it's not D1 anymore. I'm not going to do anything. Okay. Instead, they ought to be saying, let's stay competitive and let's get out here and win. So that'd be different, something new.
Yeah. Program is still a program, and an opportunity is still an opportunity.
Put two guys on the mat. I don't care what division they are. So one's going to win, one's going to lose. It doesn't matter.
Just make it exciting.
Amen. Final four, Rich?
Let's do it.
All right. Jim, are you a coffee drinker?
I've been waiting. I didn't want to do anything on here, but I kept wanting to sip my coffee. I better not do this online. So yes.
How do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
Well, I'll drink coffee almost any way it comes.
All
Uh,
right.
if I get a chance to go somewhere and get a good pour over or cappuccino somewhere, I like that, but I'm not a coffee snob. If it's a second day old coffee and it's the only thing available, I'll drink it.
All right.
Do you have a favorite coffee shop down there for a pour over in Texas?
Yeah, I mean, the coffee shop that's really in our church is a spinoff of one of the local coffee shops, and they do a really good job. 1610 is coffee shop, but yeah, and in town they have a really really comfortable setup where you can go in and spend some time and do your internet stuff and so yeah, I enjoy that. I do that maybe every other week, but most of the time I'm either working out of the house or I'll go in maybe once a month to the office.
Okay. You
Jim,
take
when
it
you go to
black?
What's that?
You take the coffee black?
I don't. I
Okay.
usually put in some type of sweetener. I may put in if they have it, maybe a little bit of honey, and I'll put. I don't put creamer in or anything in it, but I do take it. I do put some sweetener in it.
Okay.
Jim, when you go to church, you get a good cup of coffee and then go into church.
Absolutely. Well, I take it in there
Ah,
with me for sure. I mean, yeah, we have in fact, it's almost it's not mandated, but I mean about of the 300 people that are there, probably 50 of them have a cup of coffee in their hand. So, and we have a full barista set up. I mean, it's a great coffee shop. And they run it all year, all week long, not just on Sunday.
that's a
That's
good idea.
genius. That's a great idea. Jim, do you have any daily practices or rituals you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of yourself?
I got a lot of things I daily should do, but that I don't do. Okay, I mean, I pretty much get up in the morning and try to do some time on the treadmill and the bike. Uh, I lift a little bit, but I recently haven't been doing as much lifting as I used to. I'm getting a little long and what do they call it? But a little
Long in the
older.
tooth.
Uh, but and then usually I try to have a quiet time, especially in the summers. Wintertime's a little more difficult, but I go outside and try to have a quiet time, read a Bible, and just try to spend a little bit of time with the Lord. And so I guess that and coffee are my rituals.
Mm.
Nice.
Jim, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
Yeah, I listen to all the oldie stuff. I really haven't gotten into most of the new stuff that's out there. Some of the rap stuff is just not my cup of tea. I do like some country western music, but again, I wouldn't be able to rattle off artists. When I'm listening to a song, an old song, I'll kind of know who that is, but the newer ones, not so much. So listening to that, be it, I mean, as far as reading, um, yeah, I try to read a number of different things. Like I said, I'm reading that thing next right now to sort of see if I can pick up some good pointers in how to transition the NCWA and making it successful in that transition. I'm starting not only the NCGA, but we're going to embellish our alumni association, which I've neglected because I just don't have time. So we'll build the alumni association, but I'll pick up stuff. In fact, I got a box full the other day of I ordered like 20 of these.
All right, nice.
And so, I've known Lee Kemp for a long time and was sort of a hero back in the day. And Lee was uh, came to some of our national championships. I had him out, and he's a great guy. And I put his when I do stuff for alumni, I'll put his book in with some of the alumni stuff that I send out. And so I've been reading that. It's got lots of little pointers in it. It's not a big long book, but you can pick out a whole bunch of stuff. Same thing with golly, what's it called? Matt Snacks, I think it is, that we had with golly, um, shoot, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on names. But anyway, I'll come up with that in just a second. But that's kind of where we are on that.
All right.
Jim, last one we got for you to close out is a lighthearted one. Matt Snack's wrestling stories to
Yeah,
feed the
Matt Snacks.
spirit
Is that?
and tickle the funny bone.
Did you do Matt
Jack
Snacks?
Spates.
Yeah, Jack. What am I seeing here? I was just in Cabo with him. So, so yeah, him and Barbara. The name was drawing, was blanking out on me. But yeah, Jack and Jeremy, and yeah, I took them down to Cabo. And we had a nice time together. First time I've really got to spend any time like that with him. And he was always a big supporter of the NCWA. I mean, when nobody else would wrestle us, Jack let our guys, well, come up and get their butts handed to him. But he let him come up, and he had him come up the night before, and he did a little clinic. He put our guys up, and then they wrestled, the second string OU guys, and still got smacked. But he was one of the first guys that did that. So I'm really indebted to Jack for sticking his neck out that way for us.
Very cool. We've had Jeremy on before.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Jim, last one we got, like I said, to close out, it's a lighthearted one. Could be maybe a unique food item that's down there in your neck of the woods in Texas. Maybe it's a beverage. Maybe when you do have some free time, you love golf and you mentioned Cabo. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Well, now at my age, I'm traveling a lot more. I wouldn't call that a guilty pleasure. We do a lot of traveling like that. So, but yeah, I just yeah, we went to Cabo with Jack and Barbie. I was in St. Martin last week, and about a month and a half ago, my took my son, or my son took me, however you want to look at it, to over to Europe. So we got to spend some time in Rome and Poland, and so yeah, I enjoy travel. I didn't do any of that when I was younger, so I'm making up for it right now, and trying to learn some of that. And then I don't know, guilty pleasure. Um, is that supposed to be food? You said like
No, it could be
Can
anything.
be.
Traveling is definitely a guilty
traveling's
pleasure.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
For
my
sure.
guilty food pleasure is going to be ice cream. Probably, if I start on ice cream, I'll eat the whole half gallon, which is horrible, but I do it, and I do it at nighttime, which is the worst time to do it.
yeah.
And so that's why I got to get up and be on the treadmill and the bike in the morning.
Excellent. You have a
What's
favorite
your ice
flavor ice
cream?
cream?
A fla Probably Bluebell Millennium Crunch.
Okay. All right.
Jim, thank you so much for the time this evening, and thank you so much for all that you do for wrestling. It's amazing how much you've helped grow the sport and how much you've given kids an opportunity. So thank you so much, and thank you for educating our audience on the NCWA.
Well, thanks, Jimmy Rich. I mean, it's been a pleasure, and I do it. It is rewarding to me. It is not just you give of that stuff, but the reality is I get a lot more back than I give. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. It's an honor to chat with you, get to know you a little bit, hear about your story, hear more about the NCWA. And yeah, anything we can do to support the sport, help grow the sport. It's an honor to us to be a part of it. So we do thank you for your time, and best of luck with everything that's coming up the rest of the season, and safe travels for your next trip. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is Jim Giunta from the NCWA. Make sure you go check out those links in the show notes. Make sure you go to ncwa.net and NCWA Wrestling on Instagram. Give them a little love on the socials. Let them know the Airey Bros sent you. We will be back on Thursday night. We're going to be tying in some wrestling, but also talking about nutrition with Dr. Bill Schindler. He's a Jersey guy. He's going to be joining us on Thursday to talk about his book, Eat Like a Human. So we're excited to get into that, get back to the Jersey roots. We'll see if he still weighs in on the great pork roll Taylor ham debate. We'll have to find out. Until then, have a great rest of your night, and